Jurassic Park come true. What the F?
If we run out of water, what will we do?
What the F? Will a robot take your job away? What's the FAQ?
Tonight, we find out what would a truly representative parliament look like.
Is my phone secretly listening to me?
Do dogs really love their owners?
Do bald men really have more testosterone?
But first...
Mark asks, if my helmet comes off in space, what will kill me first? Well, Mark, there's good news and bad news, but mostly bad news. The good news is that your head's not going to instantly freeze solid, like this human icicle in the movie Mission to Mars. I give that scene 5 stars for coolness and 1 star for realism, because losing your body heat to the vacuum of space is as slow and tedious as your grandpa sending an email. Besides, there's more pressing concerns, like the sudden change in atmospheric pressure. Heads exploding inside leaky helmets is due to a phenomenon known as Hollywood bullshit. Although this scene does score 5 stars for appealing to 10-year-old boys. So that's something. But what is true is that liquids boil at an extremely low atmospheric pressure. Luckily for us, even in the vacuum of space, the internal pressure of the circulatory system limits how much the blood boils. So let's go for it. Different story for the moisture outside your body. You'll definitely feel the saliva in your mouth boil and fluid on the surface of your eyes vaporizing. Embolism will still occur in the flesh though, with vaporizing soft tissue fluid, water and nitrogen inflating your muscles to twice their size. So you'll resemble a bodybuilder. Nice. Sadly, in space, no one can see you flex. Your next concern is that you'll be sunburnt from the sun's UV rays, without the protection of the helmet visor or mum smearing on sunblock before you left the shuttle. But importantly, this won't kill you quickly either. What about oxygen though? You may be tempted to hold your breath. Don't. Because of the pressure difference between your lungs and the vacuum, any air trapped inside will explosively expand, causing catastrophic injury. I repeat, do not hold your breath. But don't open your mouth either, or the air in your lungs will be expelled out into the vacuum in an instant. To make matters worse, oxygen is also being pulled from your bloodstream via your lungs into space. Without oxygen to the brain, time is of the essence. In the 1960s, NASA tests showed that chimpanzees could survive up to 3.5 minutes in near vacuum levels of low air and zero ethics. Most chimps recovered and had no apparent cognitive impairment months later. Just heaps of resentment. But what about humans? In 1966, there was an accidental leak in a vacuum chamber in Houston. Technician Jim LeBlanc tasted his saliva boiling, then fell unconscious at 12 seconds. Luckily, he was rescued immediately and repressurized, only suffering an earache as a result. So, Mark, to answer your question, you have 12 seconds. 12 seconds to get your helmet back on.
No space helmet, no play.
Sorry, I lost track of time. I need to sit down.
So, if you take your helmet off in space, it's the lack of oxygen that'll kill you first. But also, never take your helmet off in space, Lawrence.
Where's our spaceship?
Do bald men really have more testosterone? I can see why bald men would like to think that, but sadly, the answer is no. Some testosterone is necessary for male pattern baldness to occur. However, it doesn't take much. Your likelihood of going bald is about your scalp's sensitivity to DHT, a byproduct of testosterone. So, a man can have low testosterone and high sensitivity to DHT and go bald, or have high testosterone and low sensitivity to DHT and not go bald. So rather than being more testosterone-fueled, bald men are actually more sensitive. Oh, I love that for you, you little sweethearts.
What's the FAQ?
Do dogs really love their owners? Well, As the proud owner of a 33-kilogram golden retriever named Junior, who's always laying on my lap, yes, dogs love us. They show us love all the time.
No. Unfortunately, it doesn't work quite like that. It's more complicated. Dogs can be loved by us, but it's conditional. We're told that dogs love us unconditionally. But if a dog's anxious and stressed, they can't really receive love and feel it chemically.
What do you mean by that?
You'll still have a relationship, it's just an unhealthy one.
It's an interesting theory. I was hanging out with my dog all of yesterday and we filmed it on GoPro. And she was doing all kinds of lovey stuff. Like, for example, when I was about to leave, she was giving me these puppy dog eyes. So that obviously means she loves me.
When dogs want affection, they'll give you the look to get it off you, and then you'll give it to them again.
Right.
Dogs use manipulative behaviours to get what they want. So you'll see the eyes are wide open, the dog's body's up and tense, meaning the dog's not relaxed. It's like a relationship. If someone's controlling of you and manipulative of you, that's a one-sided relationship.
All right, well, look what happens when I come home about 30 minutes after leaving the house. Hello, yeah, I know. Hello.
Oh, okay.
What? She's like wants to be near the door, near where I was.
So how do you feel about the dog waiting for you?
I think it's great. She knows that's where I come back. She's happy to wait around that area because she knows she's going to get to see me again.
So let's say you had a partner that you loved.
A partner?
Yeah.
Oh, I have a wife.
Yeah. So, okay, let's say your wife leaves and you love her, I'm guessing?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. How long do you stand at the door waiting for her?
Yeah.
Would you say someone that wants to know where you are, what you're doing, all parts of the day, would you say that's a healthy relationship or an unhealthy relationship?
Unhealthy. She's not being manipulative. She's just happy to see her buddy come home.
Okay.
She's giving me a cuddle.
There's simple rules in the dog world. One rule is a dog would never put their feet on you if they have respect for you. You first come home and a dog's been consciously waiting for you, they're actually in a state where they're anxious you've been gone. When you create a healthy relationship, you walk in the door, the dog lays in its bed, its tail wags really slow, and the dog doesn't even get up, lays down because the dog's totally relaxed, not obsessed with you in any way.
How do I know that you just don't have a really lazy dog?
Respectful dogs never put their feet on people, that you don't wait consciously. And you've already agreed with me that it's an unhealthy relationship.
I don't remember saying...
Unhealthy.
Are you saying my dog has no respect for me?
Little, correct.
Let's move on to some irrefutable proof, in my opinion, that this dog loves me because she gives me a lot of kisses, as you're about to see.
Was there, like, food on your face or something?
No.
Okay.
Hey, what are you doing? That's
How long does that go for?
long enough, buddy.
So that licking's obsessive. Like the dog's not making out with your face.
Giving me a nice cuddle on the lounge.
She's just laying on you, she's not cuddling you.
Okay.
The dog needs to be loved. Like, that's very important. But it's meant to be a one-way street. You're meant to love the dog. The dog's not meant to physically do things to instigate affection. The dog's just meant to get it.
Based on what you just saw then, do you think my dog feels love for me? Come on.
I think she can at moments, but generally speaking, chemically, it would be low levels. Oh, God. I know it's a lot to take in.
Well, there you go, Liam. Thanks for asking the question and for ruining my relationship with my dog. And you know what? I look forward to reading the many, many complaints from all the ABC viewers who are going to be equally as depressed as I am right now. Thanks a lot, buddy. Oh.
What the FAQ?
Caden asks, is my phone secretly listening to me? Great question, Caden. Let's test it. Hey Siri, hey Alexa, hey Google, play Never Gonna Give You Up. Of course, our phones are listening to us, Caden. It's not a secret. That's literally what they're designed to do. But as for the conspiracy,
companies are listening to our private conversations. They're stealing our data and they're using that data to send us targeted advertising.
Bridie's a member of our production team. She has strong views on this question, even though we've told her before that people have looked into this. Your phone is not spying on you.
Whatever, sheeple. If it's not spying on me, then explain this. The other day, I briefly mentioned that my dog Mulder gets anxiety bowels, and then the next day, bam, there it was, all over Facebook, targeted ads for doggy diapers. The thing is, I only talked about it. I never typed it into my phone. The closest thing I Googled to doggy diapers was dodgy snipers after watching several compelling exposés on who really killed Shinzo Abe. Bill Gates.
So our phones must be listening to us, otherwise how would they know to jump scare me with so many ads for doggy diapers? Oh.
Yo, Siri, explain the basics to the whack job.
We only listen for what we call wake words.
So she's listening for Hey Siri, not cheap flights to Bali.
Okay, I found this on the web for not cheap flights to Bali.
Shut up, Siri.
No, hold up, Lou. Apple contractors have been busted listening to people have sex.
So not only are they spies, they are perverts.
Look, the Siri software is still a little patchy. Reportedly, she's mistaken the sound of a zipper zipping or a tap turning on or even the word seriously for her own name.
Oh, okay, so she's only spying on me by accident? Great, that makes me feel better. Listen to me, Lou. They are called Big Tech, not Big Ted. You cannot trust them.
Well, you're right
About fluoride.
about not trusting big tech. But that is exactly my point. Look at this. Big tech does not need to eavesdrop. They already know everything about you. Facebook knows which illegal COVID medication you nearly bought off eBay by tracking your cookies. Google knows from YouTube how many seconds you spent watching this Sovereign Citizens' Rights video.
It's a good video.
Your phone company can track where your phone has been every second of the day. And Amazon knows what ear candles Mulder prefers because they bought your supermarket loyalty card data. Third parties buy, sell, and combine this data to create precise personal profiles of your internet, smartphone, social media, and credit card usage and more, all without eavesdropping. Where are you? They know where you are, Bridie. You're literally holding your phone. Listening to your phone conversations just isn't practical, Bridie. Recording a 1-hour conversation takes about 7 megabytes of data. So if your phone is constantly streaming audio back to a nefarious company, then that's 5 gigs extra a month. You're gonna notice that in your phone bill if it's happening.
Okay, what if they're not recording 24 hours a day, but they are listening for those special wake words, like the name of one of their products or hashtag Free Britney?
Fine. If you're gonna ignore all the work journalists have done on this topic, I guess we better do our own research.
Yes, I thought you'd never ask. High five!
I asked my colleagues to create a list of words I would never use. It was easy because they're old. I chose Viagra because I'm gay, and this is likely to give me some pretty cooked ads. Now, to test if my phone is listening, I will say Viagra 1,000 times a day, every day for the next week. I will never type it down into any of my devices. I will only ever say it. Cue the worst week of my life.
Viagra.
Viagra, Viagra, Viagra. 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 Have you ever been with someone who's used Viagra? Would you ever consider using Viagra? Viagra. 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 I dismiss my voice. Do you know what Viagra is? Yeah, you know what Viagra is. Viagra. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about Viagra. Viagra, Viagra. Has anyone seen my Viagra? So after 7 days and about 3 trillion total mentions, we ended up with sweet fuck all. That's right, not a single ad related to erectile dysfunction. I did, however, get a bunch of ads for these beanies. Now, trust me, if I was wearing this beanie, men wouldn't need Viagra. So I think I've conclusively proven that your phone is not secretly listening to you.
Hang on, you haven't proven anything. That was a sample size of 1.
So was Harold Holt, but you haven't stopped talking about him for 30 years.
I'll stop talking about him when I find him. Look, you still haven't explained to me how all those ads for doggy diapers appeared in my Facebook feed the day after I mentioned you know what.
They could have data mined that info in all kinds of ways, or it could have been a coincidence. Look, an American study found out that the average person sees between 300 and 700 ads a day. That's about 15,000 ads per month. That's like 14,999 times you didn't see something suspicious. I mean, those doggy diaper ads were probably already there. You didn't notice them until your dog got diarrhea. For example, you probably noticed this ad because we mentioned beanies a minute ago. It's on the forefront of your mind. That's how the human brain works. We're hardwired to notice patterns. It doesn't mean it's real.
No, there's got to be more to it than that.
Sometimes, Bridie, there just isn't.
Do race cars have horns? And I assume you mean the beep beep horn, not the moo horn, Bernie. Well, no, they don't have either. Every 10 kilos of extra weight a Formula One car carries costs it 0.3 of a second per lap. So they strip out everything that's not strictly needed, including in some cases, paint. The total paint job adds about 6 kilos of weight to a race car. Some teams have literally removed paint to shave off 350 grams. They even shrink their drivers sometimes. Daniel Ricciardo, who is 175 centimetres tall, was forced to go from 64 to 59 kilos just to keep his car speedy. Talk about fasting. I didn't write it, Mike.
What's the FAQ?
What would a truly representative parliament look like, asked Kevin. Well, Kev, you've come to the right network. We are all about being representative here at the ABC. We're the People's Network. But this does raise a question that's been debated a little bit in the media recently, and that's the idea that our parliament should represent the people that elected it, and ours simply doesn't. In fact, the only thing less diverse in our parliament are the writers of diversity pieces, who all largely seem to be this guy, Osmond Chu. But Osmond's done some great work in this area, so we really should ask him, how do the ethnic backgrounds of Australian federal politicians compare to the ethnic backgrounds of Australia in general?
About 25% of Australians have an overseas non-European cultural background, but only 7% of our federal parliamentarians do.
And is there any particular subgroup which there's a particular imbalance in?
Asian Australians make up about 18% of Australia's population, but only 4.4% of our federal parliamentarians have that cultural background.
And how are we defining ethnic backgrounds for the purpose of this? Because obviously sometimes these definitions can be quite grey and sort of murky. Michael Hing would generally be considered Asian Australian, and his family came to Australia in the 19th century. Kirsten Drysdale would generally be considered European Australian. Her family came to Australia from Africa in the 1980s.
Oh, fuck off, Drysdale, we're full!
There is a bit of complexity when we talk about, ethnicity. When you compare Australia against other similar countries, we really stand out as an outlier. A lot more work needs to be done.
So a truly representative parliament would have 41 more politicians with non-European background, of which 31 would be of Asian background. But is race the most pressing diversity issue in federal parliament for you? Because we got Essential Media to ask Australians who they thought parliament would benefit from having more of. Only 20% said Australians with non-European backgrounds, whereas 21% said Parliament needs more LGBTQIA+ individuals. 33% said Indigenous Australians. 33% said Australians with a disability. 35% said younger people. And 41% said Parliament could do with more women. Oh, and there's a little aside. The women that were polled were more likely to want more representatives from all of these categories except Australians with non-European backgrounds. What that means, I don't know. I just found it interesting. Armed with this information, I went to Canberra to ask... before I went to Fishwick, I went to ask demographer Dr. Liz Allen just how appallingly unrepresentative federal parliament is in all these other categories.
Good, not bad, really good. Good? It's hard to know.
Oh. She's got the stats to back it up too. While the median age for federal MPs is 52 and the median age for Australians is 38, politicians can't be 3-year-olds. They can only act like 3-year-olds.
I'm not going to attack members on my right. I'm going to thank the states, Mr. Speaker, for the great members on my right.
And the median age for Australians who could actually be politicians is 46, not far from 52. 51% of Australians are female. But surprisingly, at least to me, 45% of federal politicians are female. So that's getting pretty close, especially when you consider that only 8 years ago, that proportion was 30%. Even more surprisingly, first Australians actually have higher representation in Parliament than in the general population, 4.8% to 3.2%. In the case of sexual preference, about 4% of Australians are LGBTQ according to the surveys, and 3.5% of politicians publicly identify as LGBTQ. So the actual proportion could be higher than that. But there is a big qualifier on this stat.
So the census actually doesn't ask about people's sexual orientation. So we have to use far less reliable surveys for those numbers.
Family Feud?
No.
And as for disabled people, there is one self-identified disabled person in Parliament out of 227 members, so that is clearly unrepresentative. There's an even higher representation of disability in the X-Men. Unfortunately, making apples with apples comparisons between politicians and Australians with disabilities as a whole is incredibly hard, much like I was when I visited Fishwick. Anyway, out of the most commonly mentioned categories, Parliament is clearly unrepresentative for people with a non-European background or a disability. But otherwise, a truly representative Parliament looks a bit like this one. Wrong! Damn it! I was wondering why there's still time left in this segment. Ah! OK, Dr. Liz, what are we forgetting?
Marital status.
OK, don't need to use that anymore, but please go on.
Only half of Australian adults are married compared to 3/4 of federal politicians. Also, only a fifth of Australian households own a second property, but 3 times as many politicians do.
Wow. I'd probably draw a link between that and negative gearing policies if I actually knew what negative gearing was.
But negative gearing is this thing where
everybody's jumping, New York to San Francisco, to live to sip like disco, wheels are still turning.
OK, so you got it, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Parliament is particularly unrepresentative when it comes to economic class. Take education, for example. Federal politicians are almost 3 times as likely to have attended private schools as average Australians of the same age. And they're almost 3 times as likely to hold bachelor degrees or higher from a university.
Well, whether they hold degrees or not, federal politicians have been known to carry on like bachelors anyway. But I reckon the best illustration you found that politicians are kind of a different breed from other Australians is that 1% of Australian adults hold legal qualifications, whereas 27% of federal politicians do. No wonder people hate politicians so much.
Don't you have a law degree too?
You such as... Exactly. So, in summary, a truly representative Parliament would have more people with non-European backgrounds and more disabled people, but a lot fewer married people, second property owners, private school attendees, university graduates, and especially ex-lawyers. Now, representation doesn't necessarily solve every problem. I'm betting we might have some LGBTQ or First Nations viewers, for example, who won't feel that Canberra is currently working for them, despite the data showing they are being adequately represented. Maybe this just means that small minorities require more than 1 or 2 or 3% of Canberra to speak for them. But hopefully this at least demonstrates that our Parliament is lacking in some areas of diversity that aren't being talked about and might be affecting how well our democracy works. Finally, we should acknowledge the group that's been most overrepresented in federal Parliament today: wankers.
What the FAQ?